Hello, everybody, and welcome to your podcast, Mind the Time. I am joined, as always, by Brandy Mahan.
Hello, everybody.
And Mr. Sean Carey.
Hello, hello.
How are you doing, lads? What is the crack?
We're good. It's I'm going to talk about the weather again.
Well, do you know what, Brandy? We've been doing it all this time, so...
it's quite warm.
It is.
And also quite cloudy.
I love the way we're giving people a weather forecast for things that's already
and
happened.
the past weather. See, too many people talk about future weather. I want to hear about the weather last week. That's what I want to hear about. So
it's warm.
It's warm.
It's warm. It's warm today.
They summarise, it's warm.
Summarise, wee pun there too.
Oh.
Sean, what's the crack with you, sir?
I'm all good. I was painting all day. Painting.
I've seen the kitchens looking a wee bit painted.
I was saying I get ideas when I've got a few red wines in me. They paint walls and then I regret it instantly. But a lot of painting comes a lot of thinking.
Yeah.
And I came to the conclusion that there's three things that happen to me on a daily basis before my day can be a day.
What's that?
So I always get an eyelash in my eye.
Okay.
I always drop something.
Okay.
Which is why I don't pick up babies.
Do you drop something because there's an eyelash in your eye?
I think sometimes the two do, you know. What do you call it? Combust. No, not combust. Congeal. Combine.
Okay.
And then the third is... I forget.
Yeah.
It's probably that is
the third one is you'd forget
Forgetting stuff. Yeah.
Cool. Well, lovely stuff.
It's
We've
annoying.
got the weather and Sean forgets stuff. Happy days. Good. Our guest today is a writer, lecturer, musician, and a former Franciscan priest. It is, and father of my girlfriend Sarka. It is, of course, Peter Shanahan.
Whoa!
Welcome, Peter. Welcome.
How are you, Peter? Welcome. What's the crack? It's a pleasure to have you here.
Christ almighty, imagine finding myself here, huh? A young fella like myself getting lost.
There you go. And
among this Derry wheat. I know I've arrived back in Derry with the wit. And the speed of the speech as well. Of course. So I'll do my best to catch up with you.
This comes from a Kerry man.
I'm just from a Kerry man.
Yeah. A Kerry man who's now living outside Barcelona, of course.
Yeah. So somebody has to do it, you know.
Hey.
You have to do it. Huh?
And back over for the summer.
That's right.
So you're heading...
3 months on my own out there in Redcliffe.
Hi.
Wow. Beautiful.
Good place to be.
Great.
Mm-hmm. So you're heading back tomorrow?
Yeah.
Lovely.
Heading back. We're driving my Berlingo. I have a Berlingo. I'm very proud of this.
A wee Berlingo van.
Berlingo from Barcelona to Bilbao, and then get on the ferry, and then across to Rosslare, and drive up to Mallinhead, basically.
That's
incredible. I don't even like driving to Belfast.
I'm not sure whether I should be talking about it because it is a bad omen to be talking about.
Not at all.
And you're heading back. Yeah, but it was great. I'm blessed.
Brilliant.
Just blessed.
Fair play.
I am a blessed individual.
Lovely stuff. And so the year that you've went for is the year 1974, Peter?
Well, sort of, yeah.
And around it.
Sort of, Kris Kristofferson sort of area, do you know what I mean, that area?
Yeah.
Kris Kristofferson.
Yeah.
Sunday morning coming down.
Love it. So 1974, whereabouts were you? I know, you see, it's hard to pinpoint where you were in a certain year.
Don't ask where we were.
So somewhere around that time, like around 1974.
I always say, just make it up because we don't know.
Right.
We can fact check you.
Yeah.
So.
And you know what? We're going to be covering quite a lot on it.
As I imagined there was going to be a fact check.
No, not.
Yeah.
we have to take you at your word.
Like Trump. They're doing it on Trump.
There's a wee buzzer goes whenever you go to the wrong year.
I suppose so, yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I picked the beginning of the 70s because it was sort of a big turning point in my life. I was a Franciscan priest, which is totally different to being a secular priest. They're much different, Ollie. There are no Franciscans in Northern Ireland. They hunted them out of it long ago.
Right.
Well, it was settled in a different way than Kerry and Cork. And
okay.
A different historical sort of background of different Gaza background. But at that point, what am I getting at? Listen, I'm talking nonsense.
So you had come out of being a Franciscan priest?
I went into the Franciscan, so it was a sort of a monastic experience.
So what year did you go?
I went in at 60, 1960. And the church was a very different place altogether. I mean, I'm boasting now, but I won't say what
It was better in your day.
what Kerry fellas say. But if you look at the crowd that came in with me, there were 22 fellas came in with me into Killarney, and all 18-year-olds. Well, they weren't all 18-year-olds. There was one. Why am I talking like this?
Work away.
I know.
There was one guy, he was a professional footballer with Waterford, who was an expert on glass, cutting glass and Waterford.
Wow.
Glass. There was another guy who was a lieutenant in the army, you know. There was another guy who was a top civil servant in Dublin. There was another guy who was... And there was at least 3 or 4 that were playing county minor footballer. And I had some sort of background myself too. And that sort of... when you come to think that was a group of people out of 22, maybe 10 of them, that joined at that time.
Wow.
I'm just boasting. I'm just boasting.
Rightly so.
But it struck me, it always struck me how, as a slice of Irish life, you know, it was amazing.
Yeah.
So anyway, 10 of us finished in Rome a couple of years later.
Had dollars dropped out?
And then after the dropout happened after that.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So I think there were about 5 of us dropped out from the 10 that were ordained in Rome. So then you're left with the 5, and they're all popping off. And but I've a guy, you know, we meet occasionally, even still. But, so when you hit the old 80s, like the end of the table is there, and the people drop off. So it's good though.
Yeah.
One of these guys is Fintan.
Yes.
Fintan, I always think of you. When I think Fintan.
Yeah.
So if I could, I might start talking about Fintan, and that'll be the end of it. But anyway, what did we start with? Are we okay?
Yeah, 100%.
But since I'm on the wagon, I was talking to you there below about groups.
Yeah, music groups.
And then Sorika was listening, and she says, "You have to tell about that. You have to tell."
That's right. Yeah.
So I might as well.
Oh, yeah, let's go.
Please do.
All ears.
But you'll have to use your imagination, because you'll really have to do the imagination bit.
We can do that.
But let's talk about 1966. The Vatican Council is on. There are 3,000 bishops from all over the world there. We were going to change the world within 5 years.
All right, that was the
The
plan.
whole thing was finished. We had Kennedy talking, we had Adenauer in Germany, we had de Gaulle, and we had the Catholic Church was on top of it. And then you had John the 23rd, who was an amazing character, really an amazing character. But anyway, within that context, then, we had the Franciscans College, and which goes right back to Luke Wadding's time in the 1600s, you know.
Wow.
Right. God.
All the revolutions in Ireland, or revolts in Ireland, started in Luke Wadding's College and the Franciscan Priest.
Yeah.
But you had the Irish College down the road as well, you know. But anyway, the group of Franciscans, so we had Magella. Imagine he was called Magella.
Really?
This guy now was Rock Hudson, was the nearest thing to Rock Hudson. I'm not joking. He was the professional footballer. He's still alive. Seamus Cullen, he's over in England. He's a bit older than I am, because he was 24 when he came in.
Right.
So he'd love me talking about this. This would be very funny. But, and then somebody else, we could go through them. Anyway, we started off a group. And we called ourselves In Habits, you know, long habits.
Oh, I like it.
Long habits with ropes around our waist, meaning chastity, poverty, and obedience, the 3 knots. You know.
Oh, I didn't know that was what that was for.
Very important.
There you go.
Celibacy, you can imagine what it was like.
I can.
Anyway, so we started off a group, and we call it the Celibati. Celibati, it is the Italian for celibates.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And what did you do in the band? Were you on the piano?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
But mostly the guitar.
Oh, okay.
So we did, I think my party piece was Don't Think Twice, 'Twas All Right.
Oh, great song.
tune,
Great
tune.
song.
It's a great song. Of course, it's a complete lie on the part of Bob Dylan, huh?
Well,
You realise that? He was talking about the girlfriend. The girlfriend actually left him. But he wrote the song saying that he left the girlfriend.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Rascal.
Yeah. So you have to put everything. Sean, you would agree with that sort of the artistic view.
that's it. Yeah.
That's it.
So I could start talking, but we had a few goes on, 1 or 2 goes, let me not exaggerate, on Vatican Radio as well.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, but they were badly looking for something to do when they hired us. But I'll end by saying that we were very privileged because all these Notre Dame students from America, you see, these are now, remember we were talking about the 60s when these things didn't happen very often. You know?
Yeah.
It's not like today. But all these gorgeous Notre Dame students were coming to America for their year, their year cultural exchange, and these would be Jesuit universities in America. So, of course, they heard about the Chili Barty, you see, this film. So they'd be coming up and we'd be playing. And they'd be in group one, and I'd be trying to play the guitar. And I was so nervous in front of all these blondes, I couldn't pick it all, so I kept on strumming away.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's enough of the stories. But I thought Sorka asked me to talk about it.
Did the girls enjoy it? Did they enjoy watching the band? I'm sure they did.
No, that's a question I didn't ask myself. I didn't ask myself that question. I'm sure Seamus Cullen, jeez, I hope he doesn't. He definitely, was a take. But the likes of myself, I was just sort of in his shadow,
Oh, okay, yeah.
I was his backup man.
Aye.
On the guitar.
Were you in the Habits? When you were playing?
Yeah.
You used to be all the time in the Habit, wouldn't you?
The whole time, yeah.
You could have called yourselves Brother Act.
Sorry?
Brother Act.
Instead of Sister Act.
Yeah. Brother Act.
Yeah, Brother Act, yeah. That might be getting close to the bone there.
You could get a reunion. Back in the Habit.
Back in the Habit.
Back in the Habit again. Back in the Habit.
I'm here all night.
Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But I have a lot of old stories like that. But however...
so that was when you went to Rome. How long were you in Rome for?
4 years.
Wow.
There's a person whose name I won't mention. Well, I should mention. He was. I don't want to get onto that because it might.
Just use fake names. Sorry. Just use fake names if you want. You can just make up a name. Joe. Oh, you don't have to.
Joe. Well, everybody would know him.
Okay. Right.
Even the fake name.
That guy. And he's a wonderful character. And he's written a book lately.
And you've written a book yourself, of course.
Huh?
You're on the second book now, are you?
What's this?
I have, yeah.
Yeah.
And I've the trilogy, and I've the second one coming out very soon.
Lovely.
And it's about finding meaning in life at the end of it all, and three characters working their way through life.
Oh, okay.
They kill people. They're priests, and they kill people for
interesting.
For a hobby. Yeah.
Sounds interesting, indeed.
Haven't heard that before.
Yeah, very good.
But how they end up in their 70s, 80s. So I'm writing it and publishing it in my 80s. So you look at things very differently from this point of view than even from 70. From 75. So I'm at a very good point in my life now.
Yeah,
good point in my life.
Yeah.
Is the book autobiographical by any chance? You weren't killing people back memories?
You never.
We'll never.
Well, you'll never get very far.
Well, probably semi-autobiographical, because all fiction comes from some kind of fact.
Absolutely. It's guys that I mixed up all sorts of characters that you meet along life. The guy who died only last year was Brendan Ford. You might have heard of him. Brendan Ford. No, you didn't.
Sure.
You wouldn't hear up here. Brendan had got an award from the Chilean embassy in Dublin this time last year. No, July last year. Flown back from El Salvador to receive the award and see Dublin, of course, in the Crook Park, and died at a funeral 2 days later.
Right.
Okay.
But Brendan Ford, you see, he amazing. I mean, he would. How would you put Brendan? Well, he and I were we were close, very close at some stage. Sorka would have known him, because he used to stay with us. But he was, he just escaped with his life from Chile,
Because he would have went over there.
He escaped with his life a couple of times in El Salvador and then found himself, he was all over the world. But coming back through Washington on his way back, he'd be reporting to Edward Kennedy.
Okay, right.
Yeah, he'd be, and... should I mention it? Anyway, you can edit it if you don't want to. But he got into trouble over in Bolivia.
Right.
He was accompanying people into the mountains, you know, and because they wouldn't shoot them too quickly if he was with them. It's called compañero, you know.
Okay, right.
So I got a contact. He phoned me, or he made contact, I think email or something like that, and we're really in trouble. He says, the soldiers are around the village, overlooking the village, and they said, if you're not gone, and we'll kill you all.
Jeez.
So we'll give you a week to get out, you know, this type of thing. This is sort of common.
Right.
So he says, so I went to certain people in Derry,
Okay, right.
down the road, and I knocked on the door, and I said, and things happened, and King was contacted in Washington.
Wow.
And then all sorts of things happened as well.
So that
I won't say anymore because I don't know.
but that paved his way out anyway. It protected him anyway.
Yeah, but he was an extraordinary character. So that guy, when you get to know him very well, you know, we knew each other well.
Yeah. So then, after the 5 years in the Vatican, so you were staying obviously in the Vatican.
No, we had a college. There was this Sant Isidoro.
Okay.
It's a college belonged to the Franciscans that goes right back to the Middle Ages there. You know? So that's the point I was making, is that historically speaking, Irish history in terms of 1641 rebellion, all these rebellions started in the Franciscan college. It would have been the only Irish establishment in Rome at the time.
Okay.
So O'Neill and O'Donnell and all the rest of it would have gone there. Before the Irish college started at all, the Irish college would be the secular college, you see?
Right.
So the secular priest really didn't begin in Ireland until after the penal laws. That would be in the 1700s, you know? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you're talking about different dimensions. You're talking about different centuries.
Yeah.
So I'm proud of that. The Franciscans were very involved in Irish history. Right through, you know?
Just for my own edification, what is a Franciscan priest? Like, what's the difference between a Franciscan priest and a secular priest? You know, because for somebody who hasn't got a clue, might be a hard question to answer.
It's impossible to, Mr. Mahan. It's impossible to answer because the whole thing is gone.
Okay.
Just flattened completely.
Right.
Yeah.
So after
I can't answer it.
No, that's fair enough. Right.
So after then the 5 years in the Vatican, that brought you up to what?
4 years.
4 years, sorry.
I was 68. I was ordained in 68. And then I was sent to South Africa.
That's right, you were in South Africa.
I was in South Africa, and this is...
so you were in the missions in South Africa, was that right?
I was, and I had, again, I was so lucky and so blessed. I was given 3 months to learn the language, 4 months to learn language. I went up the mountains in Lesotho, in the most wild place you could possibly imagine. Lesotho is very impoverished, and back in the 60s it was. So I had the experience of flying into the mission, and then the guy that was there, a French-Canadian, he says, okay, you take over now. I'm gone for my holidays back then. And you're left with 16 schools. The CIA were flying aid into the mountain in light aircraft, paid for by the apartheid government, to try to get the Catholics to vote against the Protestants.
Wow.
All sorts of things. You learn all sorts of things in that. And but of course I wasn't clued in as I am now. I was very naive. But there was a coup by the Catholic. They had taken over. No, he hadn't taken over at that time. When I got there first, for the first couple of months I was in the mountain learning the language, they were coming up to elections, their second elections. And so that brings us on to 97. Anyway, so what am I talking about? So and then I was drifted back. I was told, I knew I was going. And this is my... I like talking about it because it's true. They appointed me as the parish priest, sort of parish priest. No, not really a parish priest, but
the equivalent of it.
The guy in charge of the mission in Sharpeville. And if anybody didn't hear of Sharpeville, you didn't hear of Sharpeville? No. So there you are, you know, we're generations out.
Yeah.
I'm certain Joe Mahan would know.
I'm sure. I'll say it then. I'm sure he has. Yeah.
Well, the police had shot 67 people there dead a couple of years earlier and wounded hundreds. And then prosecuted the people who were wounded for attending illegal gatherings. So I was found myself in charge of the Catholic Church then, and I was a mad character. I was out of my head. You know?
Can I just ask, were you not absolutely fucking shitting yourself getting into that?
I didn't have enough sense to be shitting myself, to be honest.
So what age were you at this time when you were landing over there?
What age was I? I was about 27. Well, I was born at 41. So what age would that leave me? 26, 27, 28.
Right, crazy.
Yeah. And but I was really an adolescent. I mean, my adolescence hadn't arrived at all at that time.
Yeah, so I suppose you had been spending your time as a Franciscan. Like I mean, it's hard to grow up and it's hard to mature, I would say, when
that's
you're,
right.
when you're kept within
that's
that.
Very, very true.
Yeah.
So I was asked to leave. Let's put it that way. Mm-hmm. My visa was withdrawn. I have all sorts of stories about it, and other people have other stories about it, but I have my own stories about it.
So how did that happen?
I never talked about it, and this is my first time talking in public about it.
Yeah. Well, hey, if you're cool talking about it. So what about getting up into the mountains to learn the language first? What was the language that you were learning?
Sesotho. And I sing the songs. I still sing songs.
I've heard you sing the song.
Hey Langwana, 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 di sabole di kabajat sekengwana, hey Langwana.
Fair play, man.
Did you say Sesotho?
Sesotho. Sesotho and Lesotho is the name of the country, you see. Lesotho. Yeah. So Sotho means brown. So Sesotho means the language of the Sotho people.
Okay.
And Lesotho is the country of the... And then Basotho means the people of the...
Okay. So who taught you the language? Was there people who went up into the mountains with you to teach you the language?
They did it very professionally. I had 2 weeks solid, 24 hours a day almost,
just immersed in it?
A language laboratory before I went up there.
Right.
And you just learn. I learned from the kids. I learned the songs from the kids. Mm-hmm. I had a guitar. And it was very popular.
I would say. And then
photographs there. His photographs were pretty on. Anyhow, there.
Well, if you have photographs, send them to me, and we'll put them up along with it. If you want to have.
If you want to.
Some of the stuff you're talking about actually sounds familiar because I've read A Long Walk to Freedom, Nelson Mandela. So it's like picking up on bits there, yeah.
But can I say that
different languages in Sharpsville even?
Well, he's a Xhosa.
Oh yeah,
he's Xhosa. Yeah. So there's Zulus, Xhosa, and Sotho, basically the three major language groups in South Africa, and so it was a fantastic experience.
Excellent.
I was only there for 2 years. Mm-hmm. I intended staying a bit longer.
Yeah, but
you were saying they were trying to. They were trying to turn the Catholics against the Protestants, even in the south of Africa. Like, you'd think those conflicts, how do they reach, those places? Like,
it's very simple. It's very simple. Politics. The Cold War was on.
Yeah.
So the leader of the, the Congress Party in Lesotho, and the Nationalist Party. So the Nationalist Party was headed up by a fellow called Lebo Jonathan, who had been a primary teacher in the Catholic organisation, and the other fellow was Insu Mokhetli. He had a master's degree he was educated at that, and he was in charge of so he aligned himself with the, if you like, with Chinese and the Moscow thing, Pan-Africanism from Pan-Africanism coming down from the top, from Ghana especially. Ghana was very advanced at the time.
Yeah.
And of course, you had Kenya erupting, and you had northern Rhodesia at the time, which turned into Zambia was erupting. Everything was erupting. So where am I going? I get lost in all this, but But anyway, there was a coup, and the Catholics took over.
Okay.
And the Catholics were aligned with the Western Americans and the apartheid regime, basically.
Yeah.
Well, they couldn't do anything about it. I mean, they were a tiny enclave, tiny and totally impoverished. They hadn't a chance. And apartheid just,
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about a Gestapo. And the Bureau of State Security was the Gestapo, operating in the apartheid regime. Exactly the same as Israel today.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting that the same alignment was there. We all knew that Israel and the apartheid regime in South Africa were aligned very closely. The whole time.
Yeah, yeah. So that was in the 2 years. So what happened? Did you get a phone call then, or no? You're saying your visa was revoked.
I got a letter from the Minister for the Interior. Would you believe it?
Wow.
Well, and not everybody gets a minister from.
Yeah.
And I went to pick it up, and there was a post office sort of in the location that I was in, And it was impossible to. You have a shanty town, and then you have sort of thousands of houses, and you've got a police station, and the only white men that come near the place are police, their arms. And the only white man there would be myself, because Protestant ministers had left earlier. And so I just went along to get my letter one morning, and I saw this letter from Pretoria. And I opened it up, and there was a letter telling me 3 weeks to get out and leave the country.
Jeez.
So, yeah.
Just like that?
Just like that.
But that was nice. Well, it wasn't nice. I didn't know what happened. So it's a big story, but that's enough for that.
It must have been sad leaving it behind, because obviously you'd spent 2 years of your life there.
It was so intensive. I had a very intensive. Remember, the church isn't the same church that was then.
Yeah.
You stuck your head up, and they didn't like people sticking their head.
No. Okay.
They still don't.
Yeah.
No.
But they didn't, especially at that time. So the whole idea was you're attracting attention to yourself.
You were supposed to just toe the line and...
Well, you're attracting attention to yourself.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You're an egotist, and what probably was, but it went on for a while, and by the time I left, it was very intense. So, I mean, the BBC covered it.
Yeah.
The main papers in South Africa covered it. Papers in the south of Ireland covered it. So I put Castle Island on the map for about 2 days.
Oh, Castle Island, yeah.
So after that, I did.
Yeah. So did you get out within the 3 weeks?
Yes, I got out within the 3 weeks.
So what? I take it there was a threat there that if you're not out in 3 weeks.
Oh yeah.
Or was that left unsaid?
Yeah. Well, there were some of us that would have wanted me to stay.
All right. Yeah.
And see what happens.
Yeah.
But the whole church was very much keep quiet.
Get out, just
get out fast. Because you see, they'd be all relating to the Minister for the Interior as well about bringing people into the country. And the church was very quiet in South Africa. There was only one bishop really that stood out, and that was Hurley in Durban. And I have a story about Durban, Hurley. Fuck the story. I'm full of stories. But as luck would have it, I mean, sheer luck, I played a bit of golf, but very little. But I happened to be at an ordination near Dublin, and all the priests were having their day out playing golf. Durban is a huge area, it takes in all. So there'd be about 50 priests there at the time, missionary priests that would be playing golf. So Hurley was playing golf as well. And there was a prize to go to Paradise Island for 2 weeks, or a week in Paradise Island, which was for the priests, winning the golf tour. So, as luck would have it, I was drawn with Hurley. I'm telling this story. He was the Archbishop. Now, the apartheid regime wanted him to stay in Rome. They didn't want him back after the council.
All right.
Because he was talking too much.
Yeah.
So, as luck would have it, I was drawn with Hurley. It's sheer luck. I was just a young priest. I was just after coming into the country. And we got about 3 holes, I say. And we started digging the club into the we weren't able to play golf. But either of us weren't able to play golf, and we opened our hands. So we decided to retire. So the two of us went into the pub, and we had about 2 points together, 2 or 3 points together, Hurley. So Hurley gave me a big line about South Africa. It just happened that I bumped into him by accident. He gave me a different, like, that we should be more radically opposed to the regime.
Mm-hmm.
So that influenced me a lot.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
Yeah.
So
then that brings you up to what year was that now that you left?
Okay, I left 70, the end of 70. And then I came home and I...
Back to Castle Island?
Yeah.
Castle Island in County Kerry?
To the family.
Castle Island.
You know, they don't know what to make out of you, and you don't know what to make out of yourself. I didn't know what I was.
Yeah.
At that stage. And then... I got... then Derry comes into the scene very quickly.
Right.
Oh, okay.
So I couldn't get a job in the south of Ireland. So we're after going forward way into 76 now.
Yeah.
So I'd gone back to Africa after doing my studies in America. I went back to Africa working for the UN. And then I came, and so I was home. Just thinking. So 76, 77, I got offered a job in Magee.
Okay, right.
So I arrived up here and I was out of the priesthood. I said, look, I'm gone. But at the time, then John Paul II was beginning to come in, and when he came in, I was finished with the church.
Aye.
That was the end of it.
Yeah.
I knew this thing was all over.
Yeah.
Very definite about it.
So Pope John Paul II was...
Completely a different church.
Yeah.
And of course I know now that he was just put in by the neoliberal reconstruction of capital.
Right.
Globally.
Yeah.
That we're now living under, which is epitomised in its end result by somebody like Trump.
Oh, okay.
So that started way back in the late 60s.
Yeah.
So in Magee, I would have become a sort of a Marxist looking at the whole thing.
Yeah.
But we did see, and I could give examples of it here in Derry, but I won't, of how that neoliberal thing was working on people.
Right.
It took all sorts of very genteel forms, but especially in the university as well. Mm-hmm. So it's represented by Ronnie Reagan and Thatcher, and John Paul II.
So John Paul II would have been in with Reagan and Thatcher.
Exactly. So that when Pinochet was arrested, for instance, in London, years later, and he was being held in London by the police for trying to kill people like Brendan Ford that we were talking about earlier. Who came to his aid? Maggie Thatcher and John Paul II.
Wow.
After that,
you were done.
The church was finished with me. I was finished with the church and John Paul II. I mean, even when he came to Ireland and Casey, do you remember Bishop Casey?
Bishop Eamon Casey.
Well, Casey was, I have to say, Casey is, everybody has a lot of opinions about Casey. I knew him fairly well. I wouldn't say I knew him well, but I seen what happened in the media just now.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. I was really shocked by it.
So Eamon Casey had a wife and a child in America, wasn't that a...
Well, not a wife, no.
He couldn't have a wife.
It was other things since then. Yeah. Did you see the documentaries lately on RTE? Jesus.
No.
I'm more well up on RTE. And I have no television at all.
I watch cartoons.
Look at this room.
I'll have to give
I don't.
Jesus, this is bad, you know. I'm very disappointed with you.
Oh, you're educated.
I know that you don't know about Sharpeville. I don't blame you for that, even though your father would know what it is. But Jesus, not to know about Bishop Casey and what's been going on in the news in the south of Ireland.
Well, it'll be Googled later.
Google it later.
We'll be Googling it later.
So there's documentaries
so
on
I'm glad I've added to your education.
You won't.
There you go.
You have.
So speaking about adding to education, speaking of education, then.
Oh yeah, speaking of education,
you got the job, and
I did. I got a 9-month job, which was extended for another year, and then I was left go. And they appointed an Englishman. He didn't last very long. But Yeah, that was a great year. I mean,
what was the subject?
Magee at the time. I mean, Magee at the time was something else. It was a great place. It really was a great place. And Frank Darcy, everybody heard of Frank Darcy. Did you hear of Frank Darcy? Yeah. And Dickie McGowan. Dickie McGowan was just after dying.
Dick McGowan, yeah. Good friend of my father's too, yeah.
Great friends of mine. I mean, really great friends. They were a bit older than me, but I had a different background to them, and I'd have different politics to them too.
Yeah.
Darcy was into Wittgenstein and but anyway, we had a great time. I mean, I landed on my feet. I got a job in London, a permanent job in London. This is after working second time in Africa back, and I left the children, and I left it. I went to London and I got this job, and it was a real Old Brompton Road. Did you ever hear of Old Brompton Road?
Brompton Road, I've heard of it. I know,
and we're talking about the 70s. Fellas were going around with their umbrellas over there and their top hats, walking down Old Brompton Road. Like.
Okay.
And I was after coming from a very wild background altogether, getting out of the priest. I didn't even know what a suit of clothes was.
Oh, wow.
But I ended up sleeping on a dentist's waiting room in a dentist for a couple of weeks. A fella from Castle Island, a relation.
Hey, I only thought it takes you long to get a dentist now.
But there you are. There you are. But anyway, I took up the job in Old Brompton Road as a management training job. But I left it. I walked out of it in 3 weeks' time. And in the meantime, I had come up here to Derry. In the meantime, when I was taking up the job in London, I came back for my clothes. One of my friends applied to Magee. He says, Padder, they called me at that time, Padder is suitable for that job, and put in my application. They phoned up London, when I was in London. They said, you have a job. I came up here to Derry, that's right, for the interview, while I was before I went back to London to take up the permanent job.
All right.
So I came up, will I mention the name? I will. Jerry Craic. Jerry Craic?
Jerry Craic.
He was the out in Alton, not Alton Gelvin, but the gym, and Jerry Lynch. Jerry Craic, Christ almighty, I'm out of it. The fact that you don't know these people.
They have to write them all down.
You know them really. So I came up to see them because they hit America in this university at the same time I was. Jerry had one of these running scholarship things. And I was there doing masters, and Lynch came over to visit, so I hung up with Lynch, and I sort of had a great time in Derry for a year and a half. But it was great. It was fantastic. But I would leave it like this, is that the bunch of people that I was asked to introduce them to the social sciences, so I could do what I liked. Teaching social sciences, I mean, what do you do with that? But but the people that I had in the class, in that Magee class, I mean, some of them very well known names in that class.
Do you mean like very well known?
Very well known.
Okay, right.
Very well known. And I mean, the cash was still going, you know, and they were coming out of the cash. And then you had the two different factions in the class, political faction, and not just Protestant Catholic, but you know, within it was very interesting.
Right.
But some of the people there, one or two people, are people that I met somebody on the street there last year. I didn't meet him this, but I'm very close to him. Very close to him all the way from then. Anyway, that's it.
So you had mentioned going to America. So you done your masters in America, was that right?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, and that was after Africa.
After the first trip to Africa, yeah.
Yeah, and how long were you in America for?
2.5 years.
Wow.
Until 75. And then I got this job. I was asked to do a job in Zambia for the United Nations. It was a World Bank job. I came from somebody I didn't even have a bank account. You know?
Wow.
I didn't even know. So I came and was a consultant, UN consultant, flown in, you know, these hotels and all that stuff. But that was a great experience too.
With some experience from, as you say, you came from Castle Island, and then you were in a monastery, and then to be going to Africa and America, and
Derry,
so much, and Derry, of course,
and Derry,
yeah.
Well, Derry was the most formative period of my life by far.
Yeah. So what year was it? What year was it you settled in Derry? You thought, right, I'm going to stay here for a while.
Again, I was 2 years. A year and a half really in that job first. It was supposed to be 9 months and they extended for a year, and then when they appointed somebody permanent, they appointed this Englishman. So I left and I worked on the Northwestern Health Board. Mm-hmm. I published a bit in the meantime in an Oxford journal, and but I couldn't get any job. I got a job then in ANCO headquarters in Dublin. A very interesting too, but in the headquarters about sort of training design and the philosophy behind it a bit. So that for about a year or so, and then Maynooth College were starting off a master's degree in community work, it was called, and they asked ANCO to second me to them. So I went over to Maynooth for the year, but I was still in ANCO, paid for it. And then at the end of that, Sorcha had arrived, and the twins were on the way, or the twins had just arrived in actual fact. So I was down in Dublin. Mary was here, working on the tech, Gail, my great partner. And so the situation, we were still in Redcastle, we lived in Redcastle. I didn't want to settle in Dublin. I didn't want the idea of settling in Dublin. So, and I liked Derry when I was there for a year and a half, so I came back up, but I didn't have any job. I took and I was 41, 42 at the time with no job and 3 kids. So I got grace, you do things because you don't know. And I was walking down a street, down Carlisle Road, not Carlisle Road, what's the place? I forget the names of the streets now, but just off Strand Road.
Shepke or Waterley? And
Dick McGowan was walking up the street.
Really?
And of course, I'd known Dick from the time I had worked there 3 years earlier. And he says, Tom Lovett is leaving. He says, why don't you apply for his job? Tom Lovett had been there when I was there, and I got on very well with Tom. Tom was into Labour politics. He was very much a Northern Ireland person. I'm not. I'm really a southerner, very different kettle of fish altogether. But he was an honest person, and I liked Tom. And we did a few things together with Protestant Catholic paramilitaries when I was in Magee, for instance, together, Some big names, Gusty Spence and these types of people here in Magee.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But anyway, Dick said, why don't you apply for the job? So I went up and they were looking, because Lovett had taken up this job in Belfast that he was able to take up. He hadn't been appointed professor yet, but he had taken up the job. And so, young man in Magee, he was an Englishman that had just been appointed in charge of Magee, I forget his name. He said, take up the job, take up over. So that's how I came back in. So it was sheer luck. I was walking on the street and things like that happened.
Wow.
And I had no job. And I'd never have got a job in Donegal. I applied for jobs in Donegal, And I was, if I may say so myself, I was highly qualified because I had published in this area. I was the only one that had published in the area, in the whole of the country. But of course I hadn't a chance of a job. And, going for interviews over in Letterkenny for a job that has any connections, you wouldn't get a smell. In actual fact, they appointed me once, and the next thing somebody objected to it, and they had to have another interview.
Right, really?
And then you're just walking up the street in Derry, and it's like, don't you fancy a job?
That's true. Yeah.
That's the best way to get jobs there. That's
quite true. So people like Dickie McGowan and people like a whole pile of people that I knew. Great people. Great people.
Dick was a great fella. My dad was very fond of him too. Great man.
Oh, he was.
They were very good friends.
I'll tell you about Dickie McGowan. What's his name? I forget his name. His name was in Irish, and his brother used to sing with us in Dickie McGowan's group. You see, I was singing with Dickie McGowan for 20 years.
He played the accordion, is that right, Dick?
No, I didn't play anything. I just sang.
Okay, right.
Sang songs, Irish songs, Kerry songs as well.
But Dick played the accordion.
I think so. Did Dick play the accordion?
Dick played the accordion.
That's right.
He never stopped.
No, that's right.
What I talk about there? I forget what it was.
Sorry, I interrupted you. Sorry, my fault.
I forget what I was going to say. Oh, yeah. Should I mention this? Anyway.
So that was the
But to come back to Dick, he had great principles in a way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he wasn't the same as myself at all, in terms of politics.
Mm-hmm.
But he was very honest. He bridged that gap between culture and politics, and he did it very well.
Yeah.
And he knew more about Irish music and Irish scene than in his small finger that I'll ever know,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And a great guy.
Mm-hmm.
Great guy.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, Frank Darcy as well. I couldn't. And Peter Pine. Peter Pine is still here, of course. Peter Pine is still works. He's got a house, I think, bed and breakfast and somewhere up there.
Right.
Yeah, but he left earlier on, but he's also from the south. So there were, a few of us were from the south.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Lacey. Anybody here?
Brian Lacey, I've definitely heard that name before.
Brian Lacey, well, Brian was a homosexual.
Right.
And he introduced the whole question of homosexuality into Magee in 1990, which wasn't very popular.
Mm-hmm.
So Brian was a good friend of mine too.
Mm-hmm.
And so an interesting time. But St. Patrick's Day party in Magee at the time was priceless. Yeah. It was just the best. I mean,
shenanigans.
It was amazing. I mean, you had all this talent as well in Derry being pulled into it. Like Maureen Hegarty, Maureen McGuinness. All the McGuinnesses. Mickey McGuinness played soccer, I'd say, for Derry. Oh, jeez, I'm a generation away from these guys were well known. Yeah. But you see, the institution that we belonged to, or that paid us, didn't acknowledge St. Patrick's Day at one stage.
Right.
So we decided to have seminars all day. So we had a seminar from 9 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock at night. Seminars.
Yeah.
And I mean, there might have been 200 or 300 coming in, and the music was fantastic.
Brilliant.
Great crack altogether.
So
and whiskey and flying.
There was whiskey in the jar.
Yes.
Sounds
now
great.
we're talking.
Mm-hmm. So on the music thing, like we used to be playing a lot of Irish music and that, and then we're going to actually have a wee run through of what music was going in 1974, the year that we're covering, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I associate it with even though the Beatles, of course, were still going, and I was involved so much at times in my life that I forgot music didn't even enter it. Yeah. But things like when I went to America was especially Kris Kristofferson.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Sunday Morning Coming Down. But he has some beautiful songs. I mean, I think that he was. Somebody said something about him. He could put a word on an emotion better than anybody else. I think. Would you agree? I mean, I wouldn't say you agree with that, but so Johnny Cash said he was Johnny Cash, and
they were the Highwaymen together, weren't they?
Well, for me at that time, but I was out of playing. Chetty Batty were no more at that time. I love some of the. One of my favourites is. It's a good song. He wrote it because he was reading Steinbeck's novel, The Grapes of Wrath, and there's a scene from it in which the Okie kids from Oklahoma are going to California out of the Dust Bowl, and they pull into this truck stop, and he has composed a song about that I think is beautiful. But anyway.
Right.
If you want to hear it, you can.
Yeah.
You don't.
What's the name of the song?
We definitely will, because they're very much under your music here.
Yeah, we are indeed.
Well,
always.
The scene was a small roadside cafe. The waitress was sweeping the floor. 2 truck drivers drinking their coffee. and 2 oaky kids by the door. How much of them candies, they called her. How much have you got, she replied. We've only 1 penny between us. Them's 2 for a penny, she lied. And the daylight grow heavy with thunder, with the smell of the rain on the wind. Ain't it just like a human? Here comes that rainbow again. Will it continue?
That's actually lovely. Yeah.
Yeah. You want to leave it at that? Do you want to?
Yeah, I think we'll all have a wee listen to it. What do you think? Yeah.
All right. Yep.
Yeah. We'll get her stuck on.
One truck driver said to the waitress after the kids went outside, "Them candies not 2 for a penny." "What's it to you?" she replied. In silence they finished their coffees, got up and were waving goodbye. "Hey, you left too much money." "What's it to you?" they replied. And the daylight grew heavy with thunder, with the smell of the rain on the wind. Ain't it just like a human? Here comes that rainbow again.
Beautiful.
Very nice.
Beautiful.
Good song.
Brilliant.
So I think we'll have a wee. So what we do at this time, usually Brenda will have a wee run through of the songs of 1974 that was out, and then Sean will have a wee run through of the movies was out in 1974.
Yeah. So I took a wee. I normally do the top 5 songs according to the charts of that year, and then I run through a few albums from that year. Now there's a list of albums here that would choke a blue whale, so I'll just fly through them. So the top 5 songs from that year in reverse order were: number 5 was Dancing Machine by Jackson 5. Not a song I'm familiar with. Number 4 was Come and Get Your Love by Redbone, which is a song that's actually back in circulation again. I think it's a theme tune to a TV show.
Okay.
Anyway, you had Love's Theme by Love Unlimited Orchestra. I didn't know what that was either. You had Seasons in the Sun by Terry Jacks, and apparently the number 1 song in 1974, according to the Billboard chart, was The Way We Were by Barbra Streisand. So there you go. Now, as I said, there's too many. The albums have 2 full pages of albums here, so I'll just fly through the artists. But some artists, a lot of these artists, I'm still listening to today. A lot of them. So you had Roxy Music, you had David Bowie, you had Joni Mitchell, you had Sparks, Joni Mitchell, Court and Sparks, absolutely brilliant album. You had Neil Young, Steely Dan, Queen, Genesis, Stevie Wonder, Eric Clapton, Graham Parsons, Bob Dylan, Planet Waves. You had Richard Thompson, the Rolling Stones, you had Big Star. You had ELO, John Lennon, Kraftwerk, Elton John, Leonard Skinner, Supertramp, Blue Oyster Cult, Bob Marley, Leonard Cohen. One of my favourite albums, even still, Heart Like a Wheel by Linda Ronstadt. We spoke about this a couple of weeks ago.
I listened.
Another great album, Heart of Saturday Night by Tom Waits. You had Jolene album, Dolly Parton. You had the Eagles, Minnie Riperton, George Harrison, Van Morrison, The Band, Wings, the list goes on and on. All had albums out that 1 year.
Amazing. And like almost, I would say 95% of them, like we'd still listen to.
I'm still listening to a lot, like all those artists.
Yeah.
There was more that I had. The list was so long, I had to stop writing eventually because I had to come over here.
Your hand
I ran out of time. But incredible. That's back when albums really mattered. You know, albums aren't really a thing anymore.
Yeah, that's
you know, it was all about playing a record and listening to the whole thing as one piece of art.
That's right.
You know?
That's right. Yeah, it's a big album.
Of course.
Boxes of them.
Exactly.
Carrying them around from one flat to another.
The big, and my father still has a big box of records in his wardrobe that I look through. Oh, those a lot of those artists right there,
of course,
you know.
Of course.
And your James Taylors and your Simon and Garfunkels and all this here, and Beatles. And
I saw Simon Garfunkel when I was in America.
Did you? Oh, I'm very jealous.
Wow.
That's one of your favourites.
Paul Simon's probably my favourite artist of all time. You know, I love Simon and Garfunkel. Incredible. My whole family does. You know, I was raised on. I think I was in the womb. I was listening to Simon and Garfunkel, and I've never stopped. You know, I would love to have seen them live. I'm very, very jealous of that.
Whereabouts did you see them in America?
It was Simon. I didn't see Garfunkel at all. Now that I come to think of it, in Chicago, I think.
Chicago, amazing,
way back.
Amazing. Was that in the 70s or would that have been
74? I'd say 75. Maybe.
Right. So before Graceland and stuff like that. But I when I
before Graceland, yeah. I thought he stole it from me, you see, Graceland.
Of course, because you had the whole African connection too, and
We were singing African songs.
I thought that when you sang that wee bit of an African song earlier, it reminded me of the Graceland album, the Lady Smith, Black Mambazo and all. You know, I love that kind of music too. It's amazing.
Yeah, where I was in the mountains now, this is really far out stuff.
Yeah.
You know. But I mean, they always sang in 3 parts. You know, they automatically sang 3 parts. And they do it all day.
Yeah.
All day. On Saturdays, there was a sort of a boarding, you know, we had these rendezvous around the mission, and then there was a school with all the classrooms could be divided, you say, about 3 or 4 classrooms, and then there was a big hall made out of it. You know. But on Saturdays, they spend the whole day on Saturday just dancing and music.
Oh, amazing.
The whole way around.
I would never tire of listening and watching.
Hours and hours of it. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Amazing, yeah.
Brilliant, amazing experience.
Yeah.
Well, they were all starving, of course. The place was incredible. I mean, the good kids that I had, I took photographs of their age. I'd say at least half of them were dead by the age of 16, 17, yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, they were popping off. Terrible place in that sense.
Yeah, so their music and dancing, that's what kept them going.
How they kept going, I just don't know.
Yeah.
Because very little to eat, you know.
Yeah.
And then, so movies from that time. So Sean looks after the movie list.
The movie list.
See where we were at in 1974 with the movies.
I've been listening to Donna Summer all week.
Oh, have you?
Donna Summer's brilliant. Movies, luckily it's a smaller list than usual because I can go on. We had Death Wish. We had the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Was that 1974?
Yeah, 74, first one. We had one that I think that I loved, Chinatown, Jack Nicholson.
Oh, yeah.
Because I love my film noir.
Kind of film noir, exactly, yeah.
Even though I think I had the most anticlimactic ending ever, but the first, 2 hours is just fantastic. We had, which was also apparently the #1 film that year, we had Blazing Saddles.
Oh, Blazing Saddles. Oh, I saw Blazing Saddles in Buncrana.
Really?
I saw
in that same cinema?
Well,
that's still there?
I think so. It must have been.
That must be, yeah.
I need to get into that. Somebody told me to get into it. It's brilliant.
Blazing Saddles was great.
That's great.
Way ahead of its time in terms of comedy.
That really pivotal scene where they're all farting.
Yeah.
Eating beans. Fart. Carry On Dick. I mentioned this film because we haven't had a Carry On film mentioned yet.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, Carry On Dick. Probably one of the lesser known ones, but some of them films were pretty good. We had The Tower and Inferno.
Oh, yeah.
I remember that.
Is that an Oscar-winning movie, was it?
I think so. A lot of big stars in it. Paul Newman, Steve McQueen, Faye.
Oh, yeah, Steve McQueen.
Dunaway and William Holden. We had Godfather Part 2. We had The Great Gatsby with Robert Redford, the original. We had Foxy Brown with Pam Grier.
Don't know that one.
It's a good show. We had The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3 with Walter Matthau.
Oh, did they remake that years later?
Yeah, we
with
Denzel.
John Travolta, no?
Aye, Denzel.
Right, okay.
Wasn't it? I think I watched
I don't know.
I think it was Denzel.
I'm just nodding.
I think he was the actual conductor. What do you call it? Not the conductor, the actual train driver. It's a good film. We had The Gambler, James Caan. The Parallax View. With Warren Beatty. With The Sugarland Express, Goldie Hawn.
Goldie Hawn.
We had the
Earl Goldie.
And we had The Odessa File with John Voight. A lot of these, to be honest, I thought I had my movies. I thought I knew my movies and had my movies in the bag. Hey, some of these I haven't seen.
Yeah. I haven't seen a lot of them.
But I'd watch a lot of movies, obviously from the 40s and 50s, a lot of film noir and stuff. But some of these blew my mind. I was like, what?
Well, there you go. That's more for your list, Sean.
You can put them on your list to watch, exactly.
And then the one that stood out for me was this film called Sardos with Sean Connery and Charlotte Rampling. I just seen the poster for it, and it looks like a science fiction movie, but it looks like Sean Connery, but it just looks like James Bond in a mankini. That's the way he's dressed in it. So I was like, I gotta watch this shit.
That's your viewing for tonight,
Yeah.
Sean?
And I don't mean like for pleasure. It's
Shit sounds like a good word for it, to be honest.
I need to watch it. I meant to watch a trailer, but you guys started to land, so I was like, I got to get on this later.
Yeah. What do we see? What TV shows we had? They're not there.
Ninja.
Ninja. That's
I
right.
see Ninja up here.
Yeah.
There was no animated films that year, funny enough. There was nothing. I thought there might have been like a Disney or, one of the big Disney movies, but there's nothing.
My son Fikra was mad on
The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
There you go. He would like this room, man.
yeah, I'd say so.
So what do we see? TV shows of 1974. It Ain't Half Hot, Mum. The Muppet Show.
The Muppet Show.
Policewoman. The Dean Martin Celebrity Roast. Well, Happy Days.
Happy Days.
So Happy Days started in 1974.
Right.
Another one started in 1974. One of my favourites is Little House on the Prairie.
Hey.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
Happy Days, Good Times.
Happy Days was class.
The $6 Million Man also started in 1974. Big show as well.
I wonder what that would be called now with inflation.
Porridge also started in 1974. Ronnie Barker. Yeah, love that show as well. Planet of the Apes was out in 1974.
Yeah, Planet of the Apes.
Shazam.
Shazam.
Rise and Damp, there's another one.
Yeah, that came up actually. I think there was a movie.
Yeah, Hong Kong Phooey. That was an animated show, Hong Kong Phooey.
Oh, okay.
Do you know that?
Didn't come up on my cellular device.
Oh, there you go. That's as many as I recognise now.
Yeah.
So that's 1974. Anything else, Peter, that you would like to add to your 1974? Do you know 1970s experience?
No, well, I think we've covered an awful lot.
We did cover an awful lot. We've covered a good wee bit now.
Through the 70s.
Yeah.
My life.
Yeah, I'm sure we could add.
My story, my story was this. But there's more to stories, isn't there? Than stories.
Of course.
There's always. Yeah.
Could I ask, have you ever returned or had you ever lived in Kerry again, or have you been back, and how often?
I've never actually lived there, no.
Yeah.
I'm down practically every year.
Yeah.
I'm just after coming up from a week in it.
Okay. Wow.
And that's just fantastic, for me. But, you don't want... I've nephews and nieces. I have a lot of nephews and nieces down there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, one fellow... Did you see the American football?
Seen that? Yeah. Yeah.
Did you see that?
Yeah. So there's a Shanahan.
That my brother's... in other words, his grandson, my brother's grandson, was playing in the American team
for Georgia Tech.
Really?
Tech, yeah.
American football?
So they come over to play in Ireland every year, American football.
He was. I think he was a Kerry minor at one stage. At least he was knocking on the door. If he wasn't, I think he was. And he was kicking a ball in Castle Island, above in the field, and he was spotted.
Right.
I don't believe it.
Well, I was watching an interview with him, and he was saying that so before school every day he would have went out into the backfield as you were up to the field with American football, and there wouldn't have been many American footballs about Kerry, and he would have just sat in front of the posts and just kicked and kicked and kicked until he went to school, and then when he came home from school, kicked and kicked, and then he gets spotted by somebody who asked him to go over to Australia. So there's some big program in Australia for the NFL. That's where they recruit a lot of people, a lot of international players.
Because they probably take guys from Aussie rules and stuff too.
So he went over and he got selected for Georgia Tech. And he's with them a few years now.
Well, he's there a couple of years,
Yeah.
Very good.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's an amazing story. Yeah. So I think that's us with 1974, guys. Peter, thank you very much.
Great.
Peter, it's been a pleasure.
It has been an absolute pleasure.
Absolutely.
Pleasure.
Thank you. And thank you, Brendan and Sean.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Fenton.
Thank you, Fenton. We never thank. We always forget to thank Fenton. He's
the Fint.
It's a thankless job. Heavy hangs the head that wears a crown.
It's a thankless job. I'm heading over to do a gig now.
So you are actually.
So I'm going to have to get my stand-up comedy head on me when I'm going out the door. And
I'm going to have to stitch and leave.
Stitch and leave, hey. telling you, you had to go on and Sean. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Mind the Time podcast. Thank you very much, everybody. Please check us out on our socials, Instagram, Facebook. Share it with your friends. Do all those things. Again, thank you very much, Peter.
Thank you, Peter.
It's been a pleasure.
Love it.
Check us out. Tell your friends. This has been Mind the Time podcast. Thank you very much, and good night, and goodbye, and good luck, and good luck.
Ahoy.
Ahoy.
Bye.